There were escalating forecasts throughout the day from the National Weather Service. What did the emergency managers of the county and other local officials do with that information, starting at 1:15 and onward, where you had the dire river forecast at 6:30? Were emergency managers doing anything to put any processes in place to warn people on the river?
So overall, we were preparing for the July 4th, weekend. So we had National EMR on site. We were, basically stood up kind of an incident command post, if you will, to prepare for that event. So everybody was kind of up looking at weather. We looked at the weather before. When you looked at the National Weather Service, flood map, it spanned all the way from the west side of Texas, with Kerr County kind of being in that upper northeast corner of it. And so everybody, including the National Weather Service, was looking at where's the rain going to hit. We know it's somewhere in here, but with rain, especially when you're dealing with terrain, you got to figure out. Sometimes you don't know until it falls. So once it starts falling, then you got to figure out, okay, how's the watershed going to do this? How's the science going to work? And when you had that north and south fork that we had talked about before, it all converged into one. We do know that a lot of the camps were looking at this just as much as as everybody was. With the rainfall percentages, even the National Weather Service had looked at, and don't quote me on the numbers, but it was anywhere between 1 to 7 inches. We got significantly over that. And again, when it goes into very congregated areas and how that watershed shifts into the rivers, that impacts things. And so the camps, obviously, we've heard stories where campers were getting up. They were up at 3:30 in the morning. They were trying to move to higher ground. That's the head. And the other interesting part of the terrain, and we've talked to UGRA folks as well, this is the headwaters of the Guadalupe. This is the beginning. This is where everything forms when it comes into the North and South Fork. And so as those things develop, it develops very rapidly, very quickly, and this rose very quickly in a very short amount of time. And so those campers that were able to do that, it worked. There's been the other question, and I'll just give this one out. Evacuations. Well, why don't we evacuate? Well, evacuation is a delicate balance, because if you evacuate too late, you then risk putting buses, or cars or vehicles or campers on roads into low water areas trying to get them out, which then can make it even more challenging, because these flash floods happen very quickly. That's what.
And certainly we saw that in 1987, but was there any discussion of evacuation earlier when it wasn't too late? Was there any discussion about that among the officials?
Sorry, repeat your question.
Was there any discussion to evacuate or activate any emergency plans before it was too late, where it would be very dangerous like that?
Well, so again, just like disasters in Texas everywhere, it's very tough to make those calls, because what we also don't want to do is cry wolf. We don't want to make sure that we activate it at the right time. It is very difficult, very challenging, especially with this. We're looking at 100 kilometers, right? That's a big straight line distance. That's not even along the river. These areas take a lot of time to get out to. So even when first responders were on the ground at 3:30 in the morning and we had reports, we had first responders that were getting swept away, actually responding to the first areas of rainfall. That's how quick it happened. First responders who have experience, who are Swiftwater qualified, were driving as soon as the rain started falling, were driving to these areas, and one of them got swept off the road.
So what had been done?
One last question. Between 1 and 4 a.m. from local law enforcement to the camp, saying, I know you can't get buses in an hour, but was there anyone telling the camp between 1 and 4 a.m., you need to get the girls to higher ground at the very least, even if they have to walk up there in the rain, as many of them actually ended up doing? Was there any communication from local law enforcement to anyone at that camp between 1 and 4 a.m.?
That I don't know off the top of my head. What I do know, though, is there's 55,000 people in Kerr County. Kerr County is a massive, massive area. From here to those camps is 45 minutes on a good day. And so, obviously one of the big challenges that we have, even when you have cell service, a lot of those areas don't even have cell service. Radio communications towers, radio towers within the hill country becomes very challenging. So there's a lot of areas, especially when weather comes in, where cellular towers are down or you already have bad service. So there's a lot of factors that play and a lot of variables in there on communication that, again, I think as we work through this process, we know everybody has a lot of questions regarding what are the next steps and what's next. And I think all of these are all great questions. And as we continue search and rescue and as we continue to move to the next step, we definitely want to dive in and look at all of those things, from cell service tower to to radio communications, or emergency alerting, any of those things, I think we all really need to take a look at and review, and we're looking forward to doing that once we can get the search and rescue and stuff complete.
In regards to the total number of, before I say anything else, I just want to say thank you to you, to all the first responders, to everyone involved. We've been praying.
Thank you.
We've been praying. The media's been praying. Thank you guys for doing that. I've got two questions. One for you, trying to get an accurate count on number of missing. I know you can't. I know we don't know we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
But do we know a rough idea on total estimates that are still missing overall throughout the county? And then one other follow-up. This may be for Senator Cruz. A lot of speculations being made about this being somehow man involved with the weather modification, with some of the rainmaker technology, working with farmland. Do you think any of that, is there going to be any investigations into that, or can you communicate anything on that?
Let me answer your first question. I'm definitely turning that second one over to him. So on the first question, with missing persons, so obviously we have the knowns, the Camp Mystic kids, which is the numbers coming down as the sheriff has stated, and then we have the unknowns. But we don't know what we don't know. We actually have a 5 hotline line. It fluctuates between 3 and 5, but we're working on it. We get calls 24 hours, 7 days a week. We haven't hit the weeks yet, but we're still taking in calls. We are collecting all that information. So we don't have a solid number that we're willing to talk about right now. We do know that it is a lot, because we also are getting a lot of fake calls. You're looking. This is a worldwide discussion, and we're dealing with scammers. Victims' families are being reached out to, saying that they have their kids pay me money. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. We're dealing with with mental health issues, where people are calling saying they have visions. All of these things we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and we're having to vet this information, and it becomes very taxing on our people. Again, this is an extremely heartbreaking. This is, if not the worst, one of the worst, disasters in this region in a very, very long time, even beyond 1987. And but we're
best estimate, like dozens or hundreds, or just to give people an idea.
A lot. So,
Yeah,
let me.
Not to get into the weeds on, people are asking lots of questions, and where should we start the investigation?
To the best of my knowledge, there is zero evidence of anything related to anything like weather modification. And look, the internet can be a strange place. People can come up with all sorts of crazy theories. What I know is a reality is that a whole lot of Texans are grieving right now. I will tell you, I was visiting with one parent who was talking about online, being harassed online because their information was public, that they had a little girl who was missing at Mystic. And look, there are a lot of people who are messed up, and my call for everyone, there's a time to have political fights, there's a time to disagree. This is not that time. This is a time just to reach out, support each other, go volunteer at the Salvation Army, give them money, go volunteer at your church, you know what I did when this happened? Just go hug your kids. Because I got to tell you, I hugged my girls with tears in my eyes, because every one of us who's a parent, there but for the grace of God go I. And nothing will fill the void in these moms and dads' hearts, but they'll make it through it. And every one of us, we have an obligation to come through and help them make it through it. And look, Texas will come through. And let me say, Kirk County, the Hill Country is incredible. It is beautiful. And these summer camps, Camp Mystic is an incredible Texas institution. For a century, it has made a profound difference helping young girls become strong women in Texas and across the country. And so, for me at least, I'm praying for these camps. I'm praying for all the campers, everyone implicated, everyone impacted, and I hope we come together and stand as one doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, so there you have the latest briefing coming in from the authorities there, state, local, and other officials who are monitoring this horrible, horrible, heartbreaking situation in Texas that has unfolded with these flash floods. We did hear from the city manager, Dalton Rice, say that the search and rescue operation continues, but he pointed out it's a massive field that they have to go through right now, looking for potential bodies. There's a lot of technical challenges, he said, including the weather, the bad weather that is approaching as well, including more rain. And there are enormous power outages, he said. The Kerrville mayor, Joe Herring Jr., said specifically, we need your prayers. And then we heard very emotional statements from Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, who says this is not a time for partisan finger pointing. It is a time, he did say, to learn lessons. We need to have a careful examination of what happened, learn lessons to make sure if there were mistakes that were made, they are not repeated down the road, because this area is potentially an area that will have more flash floods